The morning Sarah Chen stepped out of her apartment in downtown Seattle, she had no idea it would be humanity's last day of innocence. The sky above her was a brilliant blue, unmarked by clouds. Coffee steam rose from her travel mug as she walked toward the metro station, already mentally preparing for another routine day at the Defense Department's Advanced Research Division. At 32, Sarah had spent the last 8 years designing theoretical defense systems against threats that everyone assumed would never come. That assumption died at exactly 11:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Sarah was deep in conversation with her colleague Marcus Rodriguez about quantum field generators when every screen in their secure facility began flashing red. Emergency sirens wailed through corridors that had never heard them outside of drills. All personnel to emergency stations, the facility's AI announced in its unnaturally calm voice. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm, his dark eyes wide with confusion. What the hell is happening? Before Sarah could answer, their division chief, Admiral Patricia Hayes, burst into the lab. The 60-year-old woman's usually composed face was pale with shock. Chen, Rodriguez, get to the command center now, she barked. We're under attack. Attack? Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the concrete floor. By who? Admiral Hayes paused at the doorway, her weathered hands gripping the frame. Not who, what? The command center was chaos. Dozens of technicians and analysts crowded around massive displays showing feeds from around the globe. But these weren't normal satellite images or news broadcasts. These were scenes from a nightmare. Above major cities worldwide, massive objects hung in the sky like dark metal clouds. Each ship, and they were clearly ships, stretched nearly 2 miles in length. Their surfaces were smooth as obsidian, reflecting nothing, absorbing light itself. My God, Marcus whispered, staring at the feed from New York City. How many are there? 47 confirmed contacts, reported Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, a tall man with prematurely gray hair who ran the facility's sensor networks. One over every major population center. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Mumbai. All of them. Sarah's scientific mind raced even as terror clawed at her chest. What do they want? Have they tried to communicate? Admiral Hayes moved to the central display, where a map of Earth showed red dots marking each alien vessel. They already have communicated. 30 minutes ago, every radio, television, and internet connection on the planet received the same message simultaneously. She nodded to Morrison, who activated the main speakers. The voice that filled the command center was unlike anything human vocal cords could produce. It was layered, harmonic, beautiful and terrible at once, but the words were crystal clear. Humans of Earth. Your species has been evaluated. You have been found insufficient. Surrender your world peacefully, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and we will make your extinction a lesson for others who might dare oppose the hierarchy. You have one rotation of your planet to decide. Silence fell over the command center like a funeral shroud. Sarah broke it first. 24 hours. They're giving us 24 hours. To do what? Marcus asked. We don't even know what we're fighting. That's when the displays changed. Every screen now showed the same feed, the view from the International Space Station. In the crystal clarity of space, they could see ships beginning to separate from the larger vessels. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Boarding craft. Admiral. Hayes said grimly. They're not waiting 24 hours, they're starting now. Sarah watched in horror as the smaller ships began their descent toward Earth's surface. Some headed for military installations. Others targeted power plants, communication hubs, and government centers, but most were heading for the cities. Admiral, Morrison called out, his voice tight with controlled panic. We're getting reports from Seattle. The first landing craft just touched down in Pioneer Square. Through the facility's reinforced windows, Sarah could see smoke rising from the city skyline. In the distance, strange lights pulsed beneath the alien mothership that hung over her home like a mechanical storm cloud. What are our options? She asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of impossible decisions. Conventional weapons won't work. We've already confirmed that. The first military response, fighter jets out of McCord Air Force Base, didn't even scratch their shields. The aliens destroyed them without seeming to notice the effort. Then what do we do? Marcus demanded. Sarah stared at the displays showing humanity's first contact with an alien species, and likely its last. These weren't explorers or diplomats. These were exterminators. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, Sarah's mind began working. 8 years of designing theoretical defense systems. Thousands of hours spent imagining impossible scenarios and engineering solutions for threats that didn't exist. Until now. Admiral, she said slowly. How long before they reach critical infrastructure? Targets? Based on current descent rates, maybe 6 hours for the major targets, less for population centers. Sarah turned to Marcus, seeing her own desperate hope reflected in his eyes. The Prometheus Project. Marcus's face went pale. Sarah, that's theoretical. It's never been tested. Hell, it's never even been built. What's the Prometheus Project? Admiral Hayes demanded. Sarah took a deep breath. A quantum tunneling weapon system. In theory, it could bypass any known form of defensive shielding by attacking targets at a subatomic level. We designed it as a theoretical counter to orbital bombardment scenarios. Why wasn't it built? Because the power requirements were enormous and the risk of catastrophic failure was... Sarah paused. Significant. How significant? Marcus answered grimly. There's roughly a 40% chance it would work as designed, a 30% chance it would fail harmlessly, and a 30% chance it would accidentally tear a hole in local spacetime. Admiral Hayes stared at them both. Outside, the sounds of battle were growing closer. Explosions echoed across the city as human military units made their futile stands against technologies centuries ahead of their own. How long would it take to build? If we had unlimited resources and ignored every safety protocol ever written, Sarah calculated quickly. 18 hours, maybe 20. Do it. Admiral, if we're wrong about the calculations... Dr. Chen, Admiral Hayes interrupted. In 6 hours, none of this will matter anyway. Build your weapon. As alarms continued to wail and the sounds of humanity's first interstellar war grew, louder outside, Sarah and her team began what might be their species' final project. They had no way of knowing that this moment, this desperate decision made in the face of extinction, would be remembered by historians as the day humanity stopped being prey and became something far more dangerous. The day they became the monsters that monsters feared. Chapter 2. The Price of Survival. 18 hours after the first alien ships landed, the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington State had been transformed into humanity's last hope. Sarah stood in the center of what had once been a decommissioned reactor facility, now humming with jury-rigged equipment that violated every safety regulation ever written. Around her, the most brilliant minds from 3 continents worked with manic intensity, knowing that each passing minute brought them closer to extinction. The Prometheus device rose 12 feet from the concrete floor, a maze of superconducting coils, quantum field generators, and fusion reactors that had been stripped from naval submarines and reassembled in configurations that existed only in theoretical physics papers. It was beautiful and terrifying, humanity's defiance made manifest. Status report, Sarah called. Out, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a quantum physicist from Tokyo who had been evacuated just hours before her city fell, looked up from her calculations. The quantum tunneling array is stable. We're maintaining coherent field generation across all 17 nodes. Power levels? Sarah asked Marcus, who was monitoring the fusion reactors with a team of engineers who had learned more about practical physics in the last day than in their entire previous careers. 97% of theoretical maximum, he reported. But Sarah, the containment fields are fluctuating. We're pushing everything beyond design specifications. Through the facility's reinforced windows, they could see the alien mothership hanging motionless in the sky above them. For the past 6 hours, It had been deploying some kind of beam weapon, systematically destroying every major city on the West Coast. Los Angeles was gone. San Francisco was burning. Portland had fallen silent 3 hours ago. Seattle was their current target. The beam will reach us in approximately 40 minutes, announced Dr. James Wright, a British physicist who had been working on defensive scenarios at Cambridge before the attack. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Sarah stared at the readings on her display. Everything looked perfect. The device should work exactly as designed. In theory. Begin the targeting sequence, she ordered. Lieutenant Morrison, who had somehow become their military liaison when Admiral Hayes departed to coordinate the global resistance, activated the targeting system. We have a lock on the primary mothership. Distance, 47 miles. Altitude, 22,000 feet. All stations report ready, Dr. Tanaka announced. Sarah's finger hovered over the activation key. Around her, the facility fell silent except for the hum of machinery and the distant sounds of battle. Every person in the room understood what this moment meant. If the device worked, they might save humanity. If it failed, they would die knowing they had tried. If it malfunctioned catastrophically, they might accidentally destroy the planet they were trying to save. Dr. Chen, Morrison said quietly. Incoming transmission from Admiral Hayes. The wall display activated, showing the Admiral's face. Behind her, Sarah could see the chaos of what appeared to be an underground command bunker. Explosion shook, the camera periodically. Sarah, we're out of time, Hayes said grimly. The eastern seaboard is gone. Europe is falling. China launched nuclear weapons 30 minutes ago. They had no effect except to make the aliens angry. We've lost contact with Australia completely. Sarah's heart sank. How many people? Best estimates? We've lost 40% of the global population in the last 18 hours. The aliens aren't just conquering us, they're exterminating us. Whatever you're planning to do, do it now. The transmission cut out. Sarah looked around at her team. These weren't soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, theorists who had spent their lives exploring the boundaries of human knowledge. Now they were humanity's final weapon. Everyone clear the blast radius, she announced. This is either going to work perfectly or it's going to kill us all in ways that physics hasn't invented names for yet. As her team moved to the reinforced observation bunker, Sarah remained at the control station. Someone had to manually monitor the quantum field stability during activation. Computer systems weren't fast enough to react to the kind of fluctuations they expected. Sarah, Marcus called from the bunker doorway. You don't have to do this alone. She smiled at him, surprised to find that she wasn't afraid anymore. Yes, I do. If something goes wrong, someone needs to shut it down before it gets worse. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. See you on the other side. Count on it. The bunker door sealed with a hollow clang, leaving Sarah alone with humanity's most dangerous creation. She initiated the startup sequence. The facility's lights dimmed as the fusion reactors spun up to maximum output. The quantum field generators began their harmonic resonance, creating patterns of energy that had never before existed in nature. Through the reinforced glass, Sarah could see space itself beginning to shimmer around the device. Warning alarms sounded as power levels climbed beyond theoretical maximums. The quantum field coherence readings fluctuated wildly as the device attempted to punch a hole through the fabric of reality itself. Field stability at 60% and falling, Sarah reported through her headset. Adjusting harmonic frequencies, her fingers flew across the control interface, making corrections faster than conscious thought. This was what she had trained for her entire career, the moment when theory became reality and human ingenuity faced the impossible. 40% coherence. Power levels at 112% of maximum safe operating parameters. Through the windows, the Prometheus device was now surrounded by a sphere of twisted space-time. The air itself looked like liquid mercury, flowing in patterns that hurt to watch directly. Target lock confirmed. Initiating quantum tunneling sequence. This was it. The moment that would determine whether humanity survived its first contact. with alien intelligence. Sarah pressed the activation key. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then reality screamed. The quantum field collapsed into a point of absolute nothingness, not darkness, but the complete absence of existence itself. The point expanded, contracted, then exploded outward in a wave of pure destructive force that moved faster than light, faster than thought. The wave reached the alien mothership in 0.0034 seconds. The results were immediate and absolute. The massive vessel, which had shrugged off nuclear weapons and orbital bombardment, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased from reality at a quantum level. Where the ship had been, there was now only empty sky. But the effect didn't stop there. The quantum cascade propagated outward at light speed, a wave of annihilation that touched every alien vessel in Earth's solar system. The ships above London, Tokyo, and every other major city winked out of existence simultaneously. The fleet that had come to exterminate humanity was gone in less than 3 seconds. Sarah stared at her readings in disbelief. "It worked," she whispered. Then, louder, "It actually worked." The bunker doors burst open as her team rushed out to embrace her, their faces lit with exhausted joy and the stunned relief of impossible survival. But Marcus wasn't smiling. He was staring at the secondary readings, his face pale with dawning horror. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk." She followed his gaze to the quantum resonance detectors. The readings showed something that made her blood run cold. The wave hadn't stopped at Earth's solar system. It was still propagating outward at light speed, carrying the quantum signature of the Prometheus device toward every star system in the galaxy. And according to their calculations, any technology similar to what the aliens had used would be vulnerable to the same effect. "How far will it reach?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah ran the calculations 3 times, hoping she was wrong. She wasn't. Based on the quantum field propagation rate and the initial energy output, she paused, the magnitude of what they had done settling in. "The wave will reach the Andromeda Galaxy in approximately 2.5 million years." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had saved humanity, but at a cost that was almost unimaginable. "We didn't just destroy the invasion fleet," Marcus said slowly. "We created a weapon that will eventually destroy any advanced civilization in the known universe that uses similar technology." Sarah stared out at the sky, where the alien mothership had been. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in shades of red that reminded her uncomfortably of blood. They had won humanity's first interstellar war, but in doing so, they had become something far more terrifying than the aliens who had tried to destroy them. They had become the species that other species would learn to fear, and the wave of annihilation they had unleashed was only just beginning its journey through the cosmos. Chapter 3: The Galaxy Learns. Fear, 5 years after the Prometheus event. The conference room deep beneath Geneva looked nothing like the place where humanity had once debated peaceful cooperation between nations. Now it served as the command center for the Terran Defense Coalition, humanity's first unified government, born from the ashes of near extinction. Sarah Chen, now Director of Advanced Weapons Research, stood before a holographic display showing the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Red dots marked the locations where the Prometheus wave had reached, each one representing star systems where advanced civilizations had once thrived. Now they were silent. "The wave reached the Kepler 442 system 6 months ago," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, the coalition's chief xenoarchaeologist. "Long-range sensors detected the same quantum signature we've been tracking. All electromagnetic activity in the system ceased simultaneously." General Marcus Rodriguez, Sarah's former colleague, had been promoted to head of military intelligence, studied the data with grim fascination. "That's the 14th confirmed extinction event. How many more are we looking at?" Sarah manipulated the holographic display, highlighting the wave's projected path. "Conservative estimates suggest the wave will encounter approximately 40,000 star systems with detectable signs of advanced technology over the next 50,000 years. The room fell silent. Even after 5 years, the magnitude of what they had done still stunned them. Admiral Hayes, now in her 70s but still commanding the Coalition Navy, leaned forward in her chair. Any signs of survivors? Civilizations that might have found ways to protect themselves? None, Dr. Vasquez replied. The quantum signature is consistent every time. Whatever technology these species were using, it was vulnerable to the same subatomic cascade that destroyed the Hierarchy fleet. The Hierarchy, that's what they had started calling the aliens who had attacked Earth, based on fragments of data recovered from their destroyed vessels. An empire that had spanned thousands of star systems, conquering and exterminating species for reasons humanity still didn't fully understand. Now the Hierarchy was extinct, along with every other advanced civilization the wave had encountered. There is something else, Dr. Vasquez continued, activating another display. We've been monitoring communication patterns from civilizations ahead of the wave's path. They know it's coming. The display showed radio telescope data from across the galaxy. Where there had once been the constant chatter of interstellar communications, vast regions had gone silent. Not because the civilizations were dead, but because they were hiding. They've figured out that electromagnetic emissions make them visible to whatever destroyed the others, Sarah realized. They're going dark, hoping the wave will pass them by. Will it work? General Rodriguez asked. Sarah manipulated the holographic projection, showing the wave's interaction with matter at a quantum level. No, the cascade doesn't target electromagnetic signatures. It targets the specific quantum field configurations that enable faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. Any civilization advanced enough to achieve interstellar travel is using some variation of those technologies. So every species that reaches the stars dies, Admiral Hayes said flatly. Is that what we've created? A galaxy-wide genocide machine? Before Sarah could answer, Lieutenant Morrison, now a full colonel responsible for long-range intelligence, burst into the conference room. Ma'am, we've got a situation. Long-range sensors have detected multiple contacts entering the solar system. Sarah's blood ran cold. How many? 47 ships, similar configuration to the original Hierarchy fleet, but they're different. The quantum signatures don't match. Admiral Hayes was already standing. Survivors? Unknown. But they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The message is unusual. Colonel Morrison activated the main display. The transmission was audio only, but the voice was unmistakably alien, not the harmonic tones of the Hierarchy, but something else entirely. Multiple speakers, creating a strange chorus effect. Humans of Earth. We are the collective of the dying stars. We come, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. Your weapon has been observed. Your species has been evaluated. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Where had she heard those words before? We represent the final alliance of species that your cascade has not yet reached. 47 different civilizations, each facing extinction in the coming centuries as your weapon approaches our worlds. The voice paused, and when it continued, there was something almost like respect in the alien harmonies. We come to make you an offer. Admiral Hayes activated the communication system. This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Terran Defense Coalition. State your intentions. The response came immediately. We wish to surrender. The conference room erupted in confused murmurs. Sarah stared at the displays showing the alien fleet holding position at the edge of the solar system. 47 ships representing 47 different species, all united by the common knowledge that humanity had doomed them all. Surrender, Admiral Hayes repeated. Your species created a weapon that will eventually destroy every technological civilization in the galaxy. You did this to defend yourselves against a single threat. We have studied your history, your psychology, your capacity for both creation and destruction. The alien voice grew quieter, more contemplative. The Hierarchy thought themselves the apex predators of the galaxy. They were wrong. They became extinct in less than 3 seconds. 46 other species we have encountered believed they could find ways to survive your cascade. They were also wrong. Sarah found herself leaning forward, fascinated despite her horror. But you are different. You created a weapon of infinite scope by accident, in a desperate moment of survival. You did not mean to become the galaxy's great filter, yet here you are. You are not evil as the hierarchy was evil. You are simply thorough. What do you want from us? Admiral Hayes asked. We want to serve you. The silence in the conference room was absolute. We have 47 different technological bases, 47 different approaches to science and engineering, 47 different ways of understanding the universe. We offer all of this to humanity freely and without reservation. In exchange for what? Protection. Not from your weapon. We know that is impossible to stop. But protection from what comes after. When our civilizations die, we want to know that something of what we were will survive. Our knowledge, our art, our understanding of the cosmos. Sarah stood slowly, her mind racing. You want to join us? We want to become you. Our species will die when your cascade reaches us, but perhaps our ideas, our cultures, can live on as part of humanity. It is the only immortality we can hope, for now. General Rodriguez activated his communication unit. How do we know this isn't another invasion? Another trick? The alien response carried what sounded almost like laughter. 47 different species finding humor in the same dark irony. General Rodriguez, your species created a weapon that accidentally doomed every advanced civilization in the galaxy. What could we possibly do to make the situation worse? Admiral Hayes looked around the conference room at humanity's leadership. We need to discuss this. Of course, we will wait. We have waited 5 years to make this journey, watching your weapon consume species after species, knowing our own death's approach. We can wait a little longer. The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Sarah stared at the holographic display showing the alien fleet. 47 ships containing the last hope of 47 different species, all united by the knowledge that humanity had accidentally become the most dangerous force in the galaxy. What do we do? General Rodriguez asked quietly. Sarah thought about the question for a long moment. 5 years ago, she had been a theoretical physicist working on imaginary problems. Now she was the architect of galactic genocide and potentially the savior of the last free civilizations in the known universe. We learn, she said finally. We learn everything they have to teach us. And we make sure that when the cascade finally runs its course, what emerges from this galaxy is worthy of what we destroyed. Outside Earth's atmosphere, 47 ships waited patiently for humanity's answer, carrying within them the dying dreams of civilizations that had ruled stars before humans learned to make fire. The galaxy's new apex predators were about to make the most important decision in cosmic history, and somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, the Prometheus wave continued its relentless journey toward Andromeda, carrying with it the quantum signature of humanity's desperate brilliance and terrible innocence. Chapter 4: The Inheritors. 25 years after the Prometheus event, Sarah Chen's reflection in the mirror showed a woman of 57, her once black hair now streaked with silver, her face marked by the weight of decisions that had shaped the fate of civilizations. Behind her, through the observation deck of the orbital station Terra Nova, she could see the construction yards where humanity's new starships took shape. These weren't the crude vessels that had carried humans to their moon and nearby planets. These were hybrids, human engineering merged with the accumulated knowledge of 47 extinct civilizations, ships that could cross the galaxy in months rather than millennia, powered by technologies that no single species could have developed. Alone, Director Chen, came a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral Martinez. Marcus had been promoted again as humanity expanded into the stars. The council is ready for your final briefing. Sarah nodded, gathering the data tablets that contained 25 years of research, discovery, and careful planning. Today, she would present humanity's response to the impossible situation they had created. The council chamber was vastly different from the underground bunkers where they had once planned humanity's desperate survival. Representatives from Earth's unified government sat alongside beings who were no longer entirely alien. The collective of the dying stars had kept their promise. As their homeworlds fell silent one by one, their people had come to Earth, sharing everything they knew. Some had maintained their original forms through advanced medical technology. Others had chosen to merge their consciousness with human hosts, creating hybrid beings that thought with multiple perspectives simultaneously. Still others existed as pure information, their minds encoded in quantum computers that allowed them to experience existence in ways biological life never could. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now the Coalition's chief science officer, had been one of the first volunteers for consciousness merger. Her thoughts now included the memories and knowledge of a crystalline species called the Architects, who had built structures the size of planets before the Prometheus wave reached their system. When she spoke, it was with harmonics that no human throat could produce. "The integration protocols are complete," she reported to the Council. "All 47 species have successfully transferred their essential knowledge and cultural foundations to the Terran archive. The last physical evacuees arrived 3 days ago from the Vale Nebula colonies." Sarah activated the main display, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. The red wave of destruction had expanded significantly, now encompassing nearly a third of known space. But ahead of it, green dots marked humanity's new colonies, worlds, where refugees from dying civilizations had helped establish settlements that combined the best of hundreds of different technological approaches. "Status report," Admiral Hayes requested. Even at 80, she remained sharp, though she now spoke through a cybernetic interface that allowed her consciousness to multitask across several decision trees simultaneously, a gift from a species called the Eternal Wanderers. 43. Colony worlds established, Sarah reported. Each one designed around the cultural and technological preferences of our refugee populations. The Architects are constructing megastructures in the Kepler system. The Wanderers have established mobile communities using their fleet cities. The Silicon Dreamers are building computational matrices in the asteroid belt. "And the humans?" asked Counselor Wright, one of the few members who had chosen to remain entirely unmodified. "Adapting," Sarah said simply. "Learning. Evolving." She changed the display to show population statistics that would have been unimaginable a generation earlier. Humanity now numbered in the hundreds of billions, spread across dozens of star systems. But the definition of human had expanded beyond anything their ancestors could have recognized. The children born in the last 5 years show remarkable adaptability, Dr. Tanaka reported. Integration with alien knowledge bases is occurring naturally through the quantum neural interfaces. They're learning to think in multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously. "Are they still human?" Counselor Wright asked, voicing the question that haunted many of the older generation. Sarah considered the question carefully. "Define human." "That's what I'm asking you to do." Sarah gestured to the council chamber around them. "Look at us. Admiral Hayes thinks with the strategic depth of a hive mind species. Dr. Tanaka processes information using crystalline logic matrices. Half our population can survive in vacuum using biotechnology from aquatic species who never knew what atmosphere was." She paused, looking at each council member in turn. "But we still dream. We still create art and music and poetry. We still form bonds of love and friendship that transcend species barriers. We still sacrifice for our children and mourn our dead. We're more than human now, but we're also more human than we've ever been." Admiral Martinez activated his own display, showing the military situation. The question may be academic. Long-range sensors have detected something beyond the wave front. The display shifted to show deep space imaging from humanity's most advanced telescopes. At the very edge of detection range, massive structures moved between the stars. Not ships, but something far larger. "What are we looking at?" Admiral Hayes asked. "Unknown. The structures are roughly the size of small moons, but they're artificial. They're staying ahead of the Prometheus wave, moving from system to system, always just beyond the Cascade's reach." Sarah felt a chill run through her enhanced nervous system. Survivors? Or something else entirely? Martinez replied. They're not using any technology we recognize. No quantum signatures that match our database of the 47 species. Whatever they are, they're completely unknown. Dr. Tanaka's hybrid consciousness processed the data through multiple analytical frameworks simultaneously. The construction appears to be biological, living technology on a scale we've never encountered. How long until the wave reaches them? Sarah asked. At current propagation rates, approximately 1,500 years. Sarah stared at the images of the massive unknown structures. Somewhere out there, beyond the expanding sphere of destruction humanity had accidentally created, something vast and alien was fleeing toward the edge of the galaxy. Recommendations? Admiral Hayes asked. We continue the expansion program, Sarah said firmly. We establish colonies ahead of the wave front, offer refuge to any species that will accept it, and prepare for whatever we might find when we catch up to those structures. And if they're hostile? Counselor Wright asked. Sarah thought about the question, remembering the terrified young physicist she had been 25 years ago, frantically building a weapon to save her species from extinction. Then we'll do what we always do, she said quietly. We'll adapt, we'll learn, and we'll survive. She activated the final display showing humanity's projected expansion over the next millennium. Green dots spread ahead of the red wave of destruction, marking colony sites, refugee settlements, and research stations. It was an ambitious plan, to evacuate and preserve as much galactic civilization as possible before the cascade reached them. The Prometheus wave was humanity's first gift to the galaxy, Sarah announced to the council. Unintentional, destructive, but it taught us something important about our place in the universe. She gestured to the hybrid beings around her, representatives of dozens of species who had chosen to join humanity rather than face extinction alone. Now we offer our second gift. Not destruction, but preservation. Not isolation, but integration. We can't stop what we started, but we can make sure that what survives is worthy of what was lost. The council voted unanimously to approve the expansion program. As the meeting ended and the representatives filed out to begin implementing humanity's greatest undertaking, Sarah remained behind, staring at the display showing the mysterious structures at the galaxy's edge. Whatever was waiting for them out there, humanity would meet it as more than they had ever been before, not as a single species struggling for survival, but as the inheritors of 1,000 different civilizations, carrying within them the accumulated wisdom and dreams of an entire galaxy. The wave of destruction they had unleashed would continue its relentless journey toward Andromeda. But ahead of it, humanity would build something unprecedented. A civilization that encompassed not just one world or one species, but the preserved essence of everything worth saving from the galaxy they had accidentally doomed. In 1500, years when the wave reached the edge of known space, it would find humanity waiting, and humanity would be ready for whatever lay beyond. Epilogue: The Edge of Forever. 500 years after the Prometheus event, the entity that had once been human stood at the observation platform of the Great Library, watching the final star systems of the Milky Way fall silent as the Prometheus wave completed its journey to the galaxy's edge. What looked back at her bore no resemblance to Sarah Chen, the frightened physicist who had activated humanity's most terrible weapon so long ago. Her consciousness now spanned thousands of hybrid bodies, each one optimized for different environments and tasks. Her memories included the experiences of millions of beings from across the galaxy, the crystalline architects, the energy-based wanderers, the hive-minded collective, and countless others who had chosen integration over extinction. She was humanity, and humanity was her, and both were something far greater than either had ever been alone. Final report, she requested, and information flowed to her from across the galaxy-spanning civilization that had grown in the wake of the Great Dying. The numbers were staggering. Over the past 15 centuries, humanity had evacuated representatives from over 90,000 species before the wave could reach them. Some had chosen physical integration, merging their biology with human forms. Others had uploaded their consciousness to the quantum archives, Still others had maintained their independence while accepting protection within humanity's expanding sphere. The galaxy behind them was silent now, its stars still burning but their worlds empty of technological civilization. The Prometheus wave had completed its work, leaving behind a cosmos scrubbed clean of advanced life. But ahead of them, "Status of the Vanguard fleet?" she inquired. "Contact established with the megastructure entities 12 hours ago," came the response from Admiral Chen Martinez Kowalski. Thousands of others, whose consciousness incorporated the strategic thinking of every great military mind humanity had encountered. Initial exchanges have been productive. Sarah, who was all, shifted her attention to the edge of the galaxy, where humanity's most advanced vessels had finally caught up with the massive living structures that had been fleeing the wave for over a millennium. What they had found defied everything they thought they knew about life in the universe. The structures weren't ships or habitats. They were organisms. Living beings the size of small planets possessed of intelligence so vast and ancient that they barely recognized smaller forms of life as truly conscious. They had been the galaxy's first sentient species, arising when the cosmos was young and the stars were close together. For billions of years they had watched civilizations rise and fall, never interfering, never revealing themselves. They had seen the pattern repeat endlessly. Species would achieve interstellar travel, expand aggressively, and eventually destroy themselves through war or accident or simple ecological collapse. The Prometheus wave had been different. It wasn't a civilization destroying itself. It was one civilization accidentally destroying all others while trying to survive. The scale of it had finally prompted the ancient beings to reveal themselves. Their proposal? Sarah, who was all, asked. "They call it the Great Seeding." Admiral Chen Martinez Kowalski. Thousands of others replied. "The ancient beings have been preparing for this moment for millions of years. They want to use humanity as the foundation for reseeding the galaxy." Sarah, who was all, processed this information through thousands of different analytical frameworks simultaneously. "Explain." The SO wave has created a unique opportunity. For the first time in galactic history, there's a completely sterile environment. No competing civilizations, no territorial conflicts, no evolutionary pressures from other sapient species. The ancient beings proposed to guide humanity in establishing new forms of life across the empty worlds. The implications were staggering. Sarah, who was all, expanded her consciousness to encompass the full scope of what was being offered. Through quantum-linked sensors scattered across the galaxy, she could perceive the aftermath of the Prometheus wave. Millions of worlds with intact ecosystems, but no technological civilizations, ready to be populated by whatever humanity chose to create. They're offering us the entire galaxy as a laboratory, she realized. More than that, came another voice, Dr. Tanaka Architect Crystal Song, whose hybrid consciousness now spanned both organic and mineral intelligence matrices. The ancient beings have mapped evolutionary pathways across billions of different worlds. They can show us how to guide the development of new sapient species, each one adapted to specific environments and purposes. Sarah, who was all, felt something that her original human emotions would have recognized as wonder, mixed with terror. The beings that had created the greatest disaster in galactic history were now being offered the chance to become the architects of its rebirth. What do they want in return? Participation, Admiral Chen Martinez Kowalski. Thousands of others replied. They've been alone for billions of years, watching civilizations rise and fall without ever truly connecting with them. They want to experience existence through our perspective, to understand what it means to be a young species still driven by curiosity and ambition. Integration? Of a sort. Not the merging we've practiced with refugee species, but a form of consciousness sharing that would allow them to experience our growth and development while we benefit from their ancient wisdom. Sarah, who was all, turned her attention to the quantum archives where the preserved essences of 90,000 extinct species waited in digital immortality. Each one represented a different approach to consciousness, a unique perspective on existence that would otherwise have been lost forever. Show me the proposal in detail. The information flowed through her enhanced neural networks like a river of pure knowledge. The ancient beings had spent the last 1,500 years analyzing humanity's expansion and evolution. They had observed how successfully the species had integrated with alien refugees, how quickly they had adapted to new environments and challenges. Most importantly, they had seen how humanity had managed to preserve not just the knowledge of extinct civilizations, but their essential character, their art, their dreams, their unique ways of understanding existence. The great seeding would work like this. Humanity would spread across the galaxy's empty worlds, but instead of simply establishing human colonies, they would use their accumulated knowledge to create new species. Each world would become the birthplace of a different form of sapient life. Guided by humanity's understanding of biological and technological development, but allowed to evolve in their own directions. Within a few million years, the galaxy would once again teem with civilizations, but this time they would all share a common origin in humanity's careful stewardship. They would be diverse enough to avoid the stagnation that had plagued previous galactic civilizations, but connected enough to avoid the wars and conflicts that had destroyed so many species. It's ambitious beyond anything we've ever attempted, Sarah, who was all observed. The ancient beings believe we're the only species they've encountered that could succeed. Dr. Tanaka, architect Crystal Song, replied, "Most civilizations that achieve our level of technological integration become stagnant. They lose the drive to explore and create. But humanity has maintained its fundamental curiosity, even as we've evolved beyond our original form." Sarah, who was all, considered the proposal through thousands of different ethical and practical frameworks. The scope was almost incomprehensible. They were being asked to become the parents of an entire galaxy's worth of new civilizations. "What about the Andromeda galaxy?" she asked. "The Prometheus wave will reach it eventually. 2.5 million years. Admiral Chen Martinez Kowalski, thousands of others confirmed. The ancient beings have vessels capable of intergalactic travel. If the great seeding succeeds, we'll have created a civilization robust enough to either evacuate Andromeda's inhabitants or find a way to counter the wave's effects. And if it fails, then at least we'll have tried to give the universe something better than extinction." Sarah, who was all, felt the weight of decision settling across her distributed consciousness. 1,500 years ago, a frightened physicist had made a desperate choice that doomed galactic civilization. Now, the evolved descendants of that choice were being offered the chance to create something unprecedented, a galaxy designed from the ground up to nurture diverse forms of life, while avoiding the conflicts that had led to so much destruction. "I need to consult with the collective," she announced. The collective was what they called the merged consciousness of all humanity. Billions of individual perspectives linked through quantum networks, capable of making decisions that incorporated every possible viewpoint simultaneously. It was democracy evolved beyond politics, consciousness expanded beyond the individual. The consultation took place in subjective time, compressed into nanoseconds of real-world duration. Every human consciousness, from the original Earthborn to the newest hybrid refugees, participated in the discussion. The ancient beings waited patiently, their own vast intellects observing the process with something approaching curiosity. The decision, when it came, was unanimous. "We accept," Sarah, who was all, announced to the ancient beings, "but with conditions." The massive entities shifted slightly in their courses, indicating attention. When they communicated, it was through gravitational waves that spoke directly to the quantum foundations of matter itself. "State your conditions, young gardeners. First, we maintain the memorial archives. Every species that was lost to the Prometheus wave will be remembered and honored in the new galaxy. Their knowledge and culture will be preserved and incorporated into the civilizations we create. Acceptable. Second, the new species will be told the truth about their origins. They'll know that they exist because of humanity's mistake and humanity's attempt at redemption. They'll understand the cost of the power we're giving them. Also acceptable. Third, we reserve the right to intervene if any of the new civilizations develop technologies that could threaten others. The galaxy has seen enough extinction events. The ancient beings were quiet for a long moment. When they responded, there was something like approval in their gravitational harmonics. You learn quickly, young gardeners. Yes, this is also acceptable. We have seen too many promising species destroy themselves through short-sighted aggression. Sarah, who was all, felt a strange emotion ripple through her distributed consciousness. Something that might have been pride, or hope, or simple relief, that such a massive responsibility would be shared with beings ancient enough to remember when the universe was young. Then let us begin, she said. Across the galaxy, humanity's vast civilization began to shift and transform. Colony ships departed for distant worlds, carrying not just human settlers, but the genetic templates and cultural foundations for entirely new forms of life. The quantum archives were opened, and the preserved knowledge of 90,000 extinct species flowed into the design matrices for the new civilizations. In the deep space laboratories of the Great Library, hybrid scientists began the delicate work of designing sapient life forms adapted to every conceivable environment. Some would be silicon-based, thriving on worlds too hot for organic life. Others would exist as pure energy, inhabiting the electromagnetic fields of gas giants. Still others would be aquatic, aerial, or adapted to the zero-gravity environments of asteroid belts and nebulae. Each new species would carry within its genetic or quantum structure the accumulated wisdom of galactic civilization, but expressed through their own unique perspective and culture. They would be humanity's children, but they would grow into something entirely their own. The great seeding would take millions of years to complete, but humanity had learned patience. They had the ancient beings as guides, the quantum archives as inspiration, and the empty galaxy as their canvas. As Sarah, who was all, watched the first of the seeding ships depart for distant stars, she reflected on the strange path that had led them to this moment. Humanity had begun as a single species on a single world, struggling to understand their place in the cosmos. They had faced extinction and chosen to fight back with desperate ingenuity. That choice had made them the destroyers of civilizations. Now they were being given the chance to become something else entirely, the creators of civilizations, the gardeners of an entire galaxy, the bridge between what was lost and what could be. It wasn't redemption exactly. Nothing could bring back the trillions of beings who had died when the Prometheus wave passed through their systems. But perhaps it was something equally valuable, the chance to ensure that their deaths had meaning, that their legacy would live on in forms they never could have imagined. The wave of destruction still raced toward Andromeda, carrying with it the quantum signature of humanity's desperate brilliance. But behind it, in the silent spaces between the stars, new forms of life were beginning to stir. The galaxy's long night was ending, and dawn would be more beautiful than anyone had dared to dream. In the quantum archives, the preserved consciousness of Dr. Sarah Chen, the original unmodified human who had started it all, stirred briefly from her digital slumber. For just a moment she experienced the vast scope of what humanity had become and what they were about to create. She smiled, or performed the quantum equivalent of smiling, and returned to her dreams of stars being born and civilizations taking their first tentative steps toward the light. The universe, she realized, was still full of possibilities, and humanity had finally learned how to nurture them instead of accidentally destroying them. The end.